Hi, everyone. My name is Tiff, and I'm the behavior manager at the Humane Society of Western Montana, and I'm also a certified professional dog trainer. We have a big, complex topic today. We're going to be talking about separation anxiety and other home alone type behaviors. It's a very complex topic, and it's so complex, in fact, that a big portion of this presentation is going to be delivered through something like a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to share. I'm going to show you some videos. And then there will be a short hands-on portion where I show you how I prepare, how I set my dogs up for some separation practices. But this session will not be involving a lot of moving around or active training of your dogs. So I truly hope that the information you gather from this seminar today will help you prepare your dogs for being comfortable alone. So I'm going to do a screen share here and get to the presentation. As always, throughout this process, if you have any questions, please feel free to add it in the chat. And at the very end, I'm going to share some resources so that if I don't address any questions today during this event, you can reach me and my behavior team at any time. So we're talking about separation, which is really, I can't just say enough how complex this topic is. There are experts in separation anxiety training out there. So trainers who are specialized in separation training. And this topic can just go on for hours and hours and hours. So the purpose of this presentation isn't to diagnose or even treat separation anxiety right now, but I do hope that you will understand this topic broader. And I'm going to give you a lot of actionable resources and steps to either help your dog if your dog does have some separation anxiety, or prevent it, especially if you are thinking that your routine might change in the coming days or weeks. Oh, there we go. So the first thing that's really important to think about is what is separation anxiety? It is a very broad term that even I, as a trainer, use very generally. For example, someone whose dog might bark all day when alone, that person might say, my dog has separation anxiety. And from a conversational perspective, yes, that is probably true. But when we're talking about really honing in on behaviors and how to treat it, and when trainers talk, separation anxiety refers to when a dog shows stress when they are separated from their person or their family. So it's maybe not just one person, maybe it's the husband and the wife, and the dog has a really strong attachment. And when those people go away, then the dog is in distress. It doesn't even matter if you hire a dog sitter, that dog is in distress. That is what separation anxiety means on a very specific level. And that level of separation anxiety is actually very rare. I can only think of a handful of dogs that have that type of separation anxiety, because most dogs that I know that have some separation challenges are such that if they're with any person, such as a friend, a family member, a dog sitter, they're actually fine. So that type of home alone issue, when the dog is showing some stress when they're alone, but that stress can be mitigated by the presence of another person, that falls under a broad umbrella called isolation distress. And then you also have dogs who are distressed when they are confined, but fine when they are not confined. So I know dogs who are very calm when they're crated, but act like you imagine a separation anxiety dog would when they are loose in the house. Or a dog that does well with an indoor-outdoor setup, like a home with a doggy door to a yard, but is completely frantic and distressed and chewing on the wall when they live in an apartment. And all of the, I'm condensing a huge complex topic into 3 oversimplified terms. But even talking about these 3 definitions shows you how diverse and complex this challenge can be, the whole challenge of leaving dogs alone. So here are some signs of stress. And these are not just signs that a dog might display when they're alone. These are signs that a dog might display under any stressful situation, such as if they're fearful of people or things like that. But we're going to focus on separation today. Pacing, panting, drooling, shaking, vocalizing, whether it's just some whining, or they're shrieking their lungs out, scratching at the door, clawing up the carpet, Maybe your dog is really food motivated, but they completely stop eating. Not even the juiciest raw bone will get them to eat. General destruction, so chewing up socks, chewing up a shoe, or destruction targeted at entryways. So ripping up the blinds, chewing up the door frame or the molding, ripping up the carpet where it meets with the door, chewing through drywall. Elimination, so a dog that is generally house trained but will empty their bowels, so pee or poop when they're alone. Self-harm, which is really, really concerning. So a dog that's so anxious that they're licking their paws to the point where they're developing sores, or a dog that is so fixated on breaking out of their crate that their nails are breaking off. That happens. It's really, really concerning when that happens. Escape behavior. So intent on finding their person or just finding a person to stop being alone that they jump through a glass window or jump off the balcony, chewing through the drywall. So you can see that some behaviors are objectively mild, such as a little bit of pacing here and there, and some behaviors are objectively very, very intense and problematic, such as a dog that will go so far that they are causing injury to themselves. I want to talk about, well, I'll talk about just how to gauge the severity of your dog separation challenges later on, but I do also want to talk about, why do dogs do this? I hope my screen isn't blocking things. Here we go. The big take home here is your dog isn't doing any of this to spite you or out of guilt or out of resentment. These are actually all extensions of natural dog behaviors, but natural does not mean that it's acceptable or that we shouldn't help our dogs be comfortable being alone. So vocalizing, there are probably a lot of, I'm pausing because I know there are some cute videos on YouTube or somewhere of this cute little wolf puppy who has been all alone because it got separated from its pack and it's howling, and then the pack finds it. Well, dogs vocalizing when alone stems from that. Evolutionarily speaking, it's advantageous for dogs to vocalize when they're alone because they're social creatures, and vocalizing helps other members of its family locate them so that they no longer are alone. So your dog's not howling to tell you that they're angry at you for going to the store without him. Your dog is howling because he's distressed and he wants you to come back. And destruction too. A lot of people, there are some funny destruction trends out there. Like, my dog will only destroy my things and not my roommate's things or things like that. And that probably has to do with scent and comfort. So dogs targeting scents that make them comfortable. But just do know that destruction in itself is normal. We kind of think it's cute when our dog destroys the stuffed toy we give them. Not so cute when it's our throw pillow, but that desire to chew and lick and just that tearing motion is innate in dogs. It comes from, well, their prey drive and their hunting drive, but the act of licking and chewing and tearing is self-soothing to them. And just think about, we strive to save money and buy indestructible toys, which is great. And definitely there is a place for those kinds of toys. But if your dog is chewing on a hard rubber Kong, that may be less satisfying than chewing on a shoelace that provides that stimulation of that tearing motion or the ripping motion. Or your headphones might have that nice give that the nylabone does not provide, as an example. So destruction is normal. It doesn't mean we let it happen, but just know that it doesn't come from a place of human emotion like guilt or resentment. It's just a dog is just so stressed when they're alone that they're trying to find some alternative behaviors to perform. Elimination is also normal. So there is a myth out there that dogs will pee when their owners leave them because they are resentful that the owners left them or something like that, or to get back at their owners. They're peeing on the jacket to get back at their owners. And if only it was that simple. It's not. It's because the dog is so stressed that they're emptying their bowels. And this happens in all animals. And if an animal is stressed, the fight or flight response kicks in and they release their bowels. And that's why if a dog is otherwise house trained but eliminates when alone, that's a pretty intense sign that the dog is quite distressed when alone. The big question going on all across the nation right now, because 2020 has been such a crazy year with so many routine changes, is will my dog have separation anxiety when I go back to work? And the that's a really great question, and it's a complex question. And I'm going to answer it by painting a few scenarios. The answer is not necessarily yes. It's not yes. It's not that COVID and people working from home and returning to work will cause separation anxiety. It's not that simple. And from my previous slide, hopefully you're getting the message that separation anxiety in itself, that term is very, very specific. I think a more general question is, will dogs have some sort of isolation distress, whether it's separation anxiety or a more general isolation anxiety when people's routines change, such as going back to work? And the answer is maybe. The answer is maybe because even COVID aside, and working from home aside, any change in behavior on our part is likely going to cause change in behavior in a dog. So just think about even how our behavior as humans changes when we have a baby, or we have our new roommate, or we move to a new house. So same for our dogs. Some dogs are so sensitive to change that their behavior changes even if you rearrange the furniture in the house. So it's not that working from home then returning to work causes separation anxiety. It's that dogs are sensitive to change in general. So yes, a change such as working from home all day and then going to work can cause some changes in behavior. And the things to determine, so I do want to help you today know how to determine if that's going to be a concern for your dog, if your routine's about to change, and also how you can prevent problems. And if you already have separation problems, I'm going to give you a lot of resources on how to address it right now. So the two big questions to ask are, what behaviors does my dog perform when they're alone? And are these behaviors acceptable with my expectations, lifestyle, and housing situation? Those two questions need to be asked together, because here's the thing, the previous slide I showed you about stress, on some level, it does seem like the top behaviors were less severe than the bottom behaviors. And I'm sure most of us would agree, we would rather have a dog just bark a little bit when alone compared to being so stressed that they throw themselves out a window. So on some level, there's mild and severe anxiety when a dog is alone, but we can't just see that on a linear scale, because a dog's behaviors only matter in the context of their lives with us, and also their quality of life, which I'll talk about in a moment, but is affected by their lives, by how we structure their lives with us. So what I mean is, let's say I have a dog that only barks when alone for an hour, let's say. On some level, you might say, that's not that bad. The dog's not pooping in the on the carpet, or, chewing through the door. It's just barking. And maybe if you live all the way out in Stevensville on a home that you own on a ranch or something, maybe that doesn't matter. You could have a life, and you may not need to address the 1 hour barking. But if you rent an apartment and you're about to be evicted because your dog is barking for an hour, that's a severe case and it needs to be addressed. Even though barking might seem mild to some, that behavior nested in the context of that dog's life means that that person or that dog might lose their home if that is not addressed. And that brings me to a really important point, which is when we're saying separation anxiety is mild versus severe, we can't just look at the behavior, and we can't just look at our emotions like, oh, it's just a little bit of pacing. We need to look at both together. So the first step is collecting information. If you don't know how your dog will behave when they're alone, you should collect that information as soon as possible. The good news is this information is very easy to collect. If you're watching this live stream right now, you are already equipped to collect this information. All you need to do is pick up any electronic device that has a camera option, such as your phone or a tablet or computer that you're watching this through, and open up your camera setting and hit record. Well, set it up in a space where you can view your dog when alone. So let's say I want to know what my puppy does when she's alone. I'm going to tilt my screen so that I can see her setup. I'm going to hit record and I'm going to leave. If you are worried that your dog, if you kind of already know your dog has some separation challenges, and you still want to collect information about the severity of it, which is important, you shouldn't just set them up to be alone and leave for 2 hours. you should set up this camera system and maybe set up a FaceTime or a Zoom with yourself. So set up a Zoom or a Google Meets. And these are all free, by the way, on a certain level, especially Google Meets. So I have this set up right now. I'm going to watch through my phone, and I'm just going to sit in my car right outside for 30 minutes. Or, I'm going to stop if my dog is about to chew through my door, but I'm going to just watch for a little while. I know this sounds really, really boring, but it's so important. You probably only need to do it once to establish what your dog's baseline is, and it's going to be really informative. It's going to be critical to determining how you're going to treat your dog if your dog has any separation challenges. So I'm going to stop the screen share right here for a second because I want to show you some recordings. We're not going to watch, hold on. We're not going to watch entire recordings, but I just want to give you an example of what this might look like. I'm also going to hop in the chat for a bit. There is a great question, which is this only for puppies or can it help a 7 to 8 year old dog? And this information applies to all dogs, no matter how old they are. So let me do a quick share of this. Okay, so here is an example. This is a shelter dog. So already this is different than a dog living in a home. But I was worried that this dog, Bellamy, had some isolation distress or something. I was trying to figure him out because when I was sitting with another dog in that space in a pod, I could hear this dog pacing back and forth over and over and over again. And that would be concerning to me because in the shelter, I don't want a dog just pacing and pacing and pacing. That's not good for the dog's mental health, and we would want to address it. So what I did was I set up an attachable camera arm system, and I hit record, and then I left. So we're just going to watch a little bit of this. So right now I'm gone, and there are probably other sounds because there are other dogs in the pod in different kennels. Take a break. My dog's being quite pushy, so I just had him go lie down. And I recorded for 15 minutes, but I love that he just went into his crate. Oh, no, he's coming out. So maybe I'm watching this and I'm thinking, well, is he about to start pacing? He looks a little unsettled. His tail is low. Is he unhappy? But let's fast forward here. And a few minutes in, this is 4 minutes in, but he went in sooner than that. He just went into his crate and he fell asleep. So this was so encouraging for me. If this was my home and my dog did this, I would believe that he doesn't really have any separation issues. Maybe he moves around for a little bit, but then he goes and he settles in his crate. This is beautiful. And I can go later. This is 10 minutes in. He's still sleeping. 12 minutes in, he's still sleeping. And by the time I come into the pod, he gets up. But anyways, we don't need to watch it. So cute. So I'm going to exit this video. I'm going to show you another video. This is my puppy, Paya. When I first got her, I took this video to show that puppies don't like to be alone. But all I do is I go into the bathroom and I stick my camera out so the camera is recording. I'm sure you don't want to watch 8 minutes of that, right? But the thing is, the behavior, now granted, I didn't stay in the bathroom for 8 minutes, and I probably should have just to collect some information. But what happens is, so she paused. Well, let's wait. There's a little pause. Now she's jumping on the pen. A little pause. Is she coming back? That's what she's thinking. I'm gonna go back a little bit. Oh, never mind. I thought I saw something interesting. I didn't. On and on, right? So that's clearly my puppy had some, I would say, isolation distress. I think if a person was in the room with her, she wouldn't have been doing that. This is totally normal for puppies, by the way, but normal doesn't mean we shouldn't start helping them. So the thing to think about, and this is going to be covered in the slide, but I'm on the right screen share to show you this. It's really tempting to see something like this. And let's say this was an adult dog shrieking like this, and you're thinking, do I let this carry on? How bad is my dog's separation issues? What should I do? And one thing to think about is, does the behavior escalate or de-escalate over time? So if my puppy did this for 5 hours, not that I would have let that happen, that's pretty concerning. If my puppy barked for 15 minutes and then calmed down and took a nap, that's pretty normal in terms of puppy behavior. It doesn't mean that I couldn't even make that even better for my puppy through various enrichment and shorter practice sessions that I'll talk about later. But 15 minutes of some barking and whining with pauses and then sleeping is much different than 15 minutes of barking and whining and shrieking, and then my puppy pees and poops and steps all over it and then tries to climb out of the pen, right? So escalation of stress and distress behaviors versus de-escalation, that is certainly something to look out for. So I'm going to stop this screen share so that I can get back onto the presentation. Let me just get to the right place here. Right, here we are. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it is so important to collect information, and this was exactly what I was talking about. Does the dog's behavior escalate or de-escalate over time? If I was living in a very busy apartment and I was watching that video of my puppy shrieking happen, I probably would have ended the session right there and then and said, all right, we need to work on this, because depending on the apartment complex I live in, maybe even that level of vocalization is intolerable. Or maybe, I know some apartments have a stipulation like no more than, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of continuous vocalization. At that, and if that's the case, maybe I would have just let it carry on a little bit longer, kept filming, kept watching to see if that behavior de-escalated over time. This is why it's so important to think about what behavior is happening, but also think about how does it affect my quality of life, like my housing situation. I also want to think about my puppy, my dog's quality of life. So even if it's just barking, I want to help my dog feel more comfortable over time. And certainly I don't want to let my dog or put my dog in a situation where he's causing harm. Maybe if it's 5 minutes of barking and that's it, and otherwise I can just go to work and have a life and pay rent and still provide a house for myself and my dog, maybe I'll let that go. Or maybe I want to help my dog feel even more comfortable. So all of these 3 questions need to be asked in the context of your life and need to be asked together. So what if your dog has severe separation anxiety or severe isolation issues? So maybe if you're watching this and you're thinking, my dog or puppy does way more than that. Like my dog or puppy is, their nails are bleeding because they're trying to get out of the crate so bad, or their body slamming, or they carry on for hours and hours. I'm going to share some resources with you in the next slide, but there are 3 main things that need to be addressed at the exact same time for very severe separation issues to be cured. I'll use that word, to be cured. The first is medication. It's, unless you literally can be home every second of the day, well, no, I'm going to get to that with management. Medication is so helpful because this is a panic disorder. Again, it's not your dog trying to be resentful or your dog just throwing a fit. Your dog truly is having a panic attack when they're alone, if it's severe. And medication can really help with that. Much like medication is a critical part in treating chronic anxiety with humans, medication is a critical part of treatment for dogs. And a lot of people think of medication as the last resort, which should not be the case. Medication will be greatly beneficial in immediately providing just an increase in quality of life for your dog, and also you, if the edge of, if just taking the edge off of your dog's anxiety, if it makes them less anxious in general, and it's going to make training and behavior modification more effective. So if you're worried about your dog's separation behaviors because they're severe, you should be calling your vet. I was going to say today, but it's late, but call your vet as soon as possible to talk about medication. Desensitization is the training plan to treat separation anxiety. It's the gold standard training plan, but it's called desensitization and not training because it's not obedience training. It's not like we're working on be calm or stay or, leave it, don't chew on the bars, leave it. Desensitization refers to exposing your dog to a level of departure that they can't tolerate, and then gradually increasing it over time as they learn that that low level amount is inconsequential to them. And it literally might just be 1 second at first. For dogs who have pre-departure stress, so dogs who are so anxious about being alone that they start panting or drooling or showing stress signals while you're putting your jacket on, it may be something as not simple, but as low level as pick up the keys, drop it, pick up the keys, drop it. Do it over and over and over again until your dog is no longer showing a stress response because they're learning that the keys being picked up and dropped do not lead to a separation event. A lot of this desensitization process looks like you're working your way to the door and then you're building up 1 second and then 2 seconds and so on and so forth. It's quite a process, but it definitely works because it teaches the dog to actually be calm and not panic with a separation event in the long run. Management is also a critical piece. When during the treatment process for a separation anxiety, your dog cannot experience a panic event or else it's just going to set you all the way back. So what it looks like is whether it's friends or neighbors or a doggy sitter or daycare or leaving your dog in the car, if they're fine in the car, building this network and safety net where your dog does not have to be alone during this treatment process. The length of treatment varies widely, but you're looking at typically weeks to months. I shouldn't even say weeks to months. It's typically months. And you can see how complex and grueling and hard this process is, but it works. And if you're still working from home right now and you're worried that your dog might have some severe separation challenges, this is why you should start the process today when you still have the ability to stay at home with your dog for the most part. Do not start when you actually need to do a routine change and get a job or go to work or switch jobs or whatever is going to happen in your life. I can't stress enough that in severe cases, these 3 things, medication, desensitization, and making sure your dog is never alone outside of deliberate sessions, need to happen all together. If you're only medicating and doing desensitization, but you still have to go shopping or go to work, and during those times your dog is panicking, you're not going to see progress. Or if you're medicating and you're managing, but you're not doing the desensitization process, that's great. Your dog is not experiencing the panic of being alone, but they're actually not learning how to become being alone either. So these 3 must happen together. Here are some separation anxiety resources from the nation's leading expert, Milena DiMartini. I actually spoke with her yesterday, right before this, because I wanted to make sure I had the most up-to-date information. And she has a blog. You can just read about all of this amazing information about separation anxiety. And she also has a self-led course. Milena has been so generous with her shelter that if you click, I don't know if you can click, but if you go to that link, and you want to do the self-led course on treating separation anxiety with your dog, if you type in that code, HSWMSA, you're going to get 20% off. And this applies to anyone watching this. You can even share it with your friends or neighbors if you feel like they need this resource. This is to help those out there who want to help treat their dog's separation anxiety. So let's say so here's what I believe. I believe that most dogs out there are going to show some behavior change or distress if and when their owner's routine change or they're going back to work. And I don't want to minimize it, but just, maybe just some barking or whatnot and behavior that de-escalates. But let's say your dog is going to show some sign of stress and it de-escalates, but you want it to mitigate it as much as possible. So even 15 minutes of barking, you want to get it down to 0. So I just want to emphasize again, mild, I'm just throwing the word around very generally, but let's say it refers to behaviors that don't severely impact your quality of life or your dog's quality of life, and it de-escalates over time. We just want to make it even better. Here's what you should do today, not when you go back to work, but right now when you're still at home. You want to help so that when you do go back to work, your dog is completely comfortable, like this dog in the photo here. One is you want to establish a space and a routine for your dog to be alone before you need to depart. So if your dog is accustomed to following you all around the house right now because you are home, it doesn't mean they can never follow you, but you should find a space where they can't follow you so that you can make it routine for them before you actually need to leave them. Maybe it's a crate, maybe it's a room, maybe it's a gated off hallway in the house. It really depends on your lifestyle and your household structure, but you should find that space today. Adequate exercise is also really important. Exercise alone does nothing to cure separation anxiety, and it doesn't mean your dog will not be destructive or bored or vocal, but it certainly can help reduce the intensity of separation, unwanted separation behaviors. And enrichment is so important as well. So as far as enrichment, one of the easiest things you can do for mild isolation or for mild cases of isolation distress is to change how you feed your dog. Instead of feeding your dog twice a day out of a bowl, save your dog's food for separation sessions. Use Kongs and kibble dispensers to make it last as long as possible, to provide a fun foraging project for your dog, and provide a variety of toys and chews. So I'm going to show you hands-on now, but I do want to just have the slide pop up briefly, and it's going to pop up again at the very end of this, because if you have any more questions about any of this, email or call us. We have so many free behavioral resources, and we're always happy to help. This live stream will be available to view once it's all over so that you can come back and find the section that you want to review again. So here we are. Let me just make sure. I'm going to close that. All righty. So let me show you how you can maximize your dog's enrichment. We're just going to pan over to the creation station here. So this is how much my puppy eats in one day. I can go on and on about food because I use 100% of my puppy's food through enrichment and training. She doesn't even have a bowl to eat out of right now. But let's say I want to prep my puppy, teach her to be alone. So I just want to schedule these separation sessions in my daily routine. Look at all of these various enrichment options that I have. And I have a lot because I have another dog, and I experimented over the months and years with what works for my dog. Because what works for my dog may or may not work for your dog. It is really important to experiment. When I say leave your dog food when you have them do a separation event, don't just smear a little bit of peanut butter in a Kong and put it down and leave them, because that's going to be gone in 10 seconds, depending on your dog. And then they're going to spend the rest of the 30 minutes or longer being bored and maybe think about chewing on your shoes. So let's say I just want to spend even just a portion of this on enrichment for separation. I'm just going to put some of my dog's kibble. Oh, that's so much. I need more for training. But if all you're working on is separation, you can truly use all of this for separation. But let's say this is all of my dog's food, just for the sake of demonstration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dog's kibble and I'm going to mix in a wet ingredient. So I happen to have canned dog food here, but anything that's safe for dogs. So plain yogurt, plain pumpkin, chicken broth, just something wet. That's how much I'm going to use. This is about 1.5 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons. I'm going to mix it up. If you want to stretch it, if you're on a budget, pour some water in there. If you let it sit, it's going to get even mushier, and then you're just going to have more filler to use. All right, if you want to be generous, you can just go ahead and pack canned food. Like if you feed your dog solely canned food, you can pack it in a Kong or another food toy, and they can earn it that way. This can of food with 2 dogs, I probably should use it soon. I feel like it's been open for a week. I don't know. But now I have this slurry, right? You can make it as thick or as thin as you want it to. And now how am I going to fill it? I'm going to pick this Westpaw toy, and I'm going to pack that. Or maybe I want to put some in this, and I'm going to put the rest of it maybe in this little wheel toy here. My dog has to work in a different way to work food out of this toy compared to the other toy. So I'm just packing that in. My dogs are very food motivated, partly because of how I use food and partly because of the food that I use. So I'm going to freeze it and it's going to last even longer. For the rest of this kibble, let's say I wanted to use this for enrichment. I could put some of this kibble in this food toy. This is the magic mushroom. Super cute naming. We sell this at our shelter actually for $20. One of my favorites because it's quite complex, or not complex, but it's a little harder than the easiest food toys. So I can put some of it in here. This actually has an adjustable dial for different kibble sizes. Oops, sorry, so I have this here. Maybe I'm going to put some in this food toy. We sell this. This is the kibble nibble. We sell this at our shelter as well. 2 different sizes, $20. Oh. This is really hard for me to close. It is doable though, but for the sake of time, you get my drift, right? I have so many different food toys. Some of them they have to push around. Some of them they have to use their nose. Some of them they have to use their paws. But I'm not making my dogs fat. I'm not starving them. They're just eating in a different way. And let me just go to my freezer and show you, just grab some more things. Okay, so this is a different food toy that I already packed and it is frozen. Think about how long it's going to take my puppy with her weak little puppy teeth to get through this. That's like 30 minutes of peace and quiet for me, let alone for separation exercises. I also have these super cute chicken broth ice cubes. If your dog's on a diet, I mean, this is just chicken broth, low sodium and all of that, put into a cute little mold. Just ice cubes, and I can put that in the food toy as well. I'm just going to put these back real quick. Alrighty. And also variety is really important. If your dog just has 20 toys lying around, but they still go for your shoes, think about the type of toy. So sometimes I like to give a natural chew, like a horn, maybe a rubber thing like this, and maybe a rope toy. The textures are different. If all of your toys are the same in texture or similar, like they're all super hard or they're all super rubbery or they're all stuffed toys, your dog's going to get bored. Of course, there are other options, like this is a sweet potato chew. This is a cow tail. I have a trachea here, and guess what? I can even fill this and freeze it, and it's going to be even more enriching for my dog. So look at all of these options that we have. I'm not saying your dog needs to get all of these all the time, but just it is worth using their meals. It's cheaper. They're going to eat anyways, and it's so useful for teaching. I shouldn't use the word teaching, for helping them learn that separation is a routine. So now let's talk about what to do. So I just told you we need to prep your dogs, right? You can't just go to work tomorrow if you've been home all day, but you don't know what your dog's going to do. And let's say you want to teach them to be comfortable being alone. This is for mild cases again. And you want to start today. What do? You establish your space. So for my puppy, her space is her crate. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a long-lasting enrichment item or 2, and I'm going to put her in her crate. And then I'm going to drape it. For my puppy, draping works well because I experimented. I did all the steps that I said. I recorded and all of that. And I discovered for my puppy, when she has the visual stimuli of me leaving and coming back and stuff, it's actually harder for her. So when I drape it, she's quiet as a mouse, even if I'm gone for a few hours. But you don't just want to test, right? I've gone through the process, so I know this works. What I would do if I were you and you were doing this for the first time in preparation for your dog being alone is do this, whether it's your hallway or a crate or just your bedroom, give them those enrichment items and put them in there and cook dinner or read a book or take a shower. Separation starts while you're still home, not just when you just leave the house. Though recording what your dog does when you leave is also really, really important. So something as simple as this gets you started. I mean, because I've done this while I'm home cooking dinner, I had an inkling that she would still do this when I had to go to work. And when I recorded, I found that to be true. But this is so easy, right? This is why today's seminar isn't hands-on. Is all it is prepping the right things and making this a normal part of your routine. So again, whether it's a bedroom or a crate or an X pen, you need to discover what space works for your dog. And you need to teach your dog that doing this, being alone away from you, whether it's because you're going on a grocery trip or because you're just taking a quick shower, but being alone is a normal part of living with you. Then, when you actually do need to leave them alone because you're going back to work or you're getting a new job, it's not going to be so jarring from them. The behavior of spending time alone from you has already been established so that you know what your dog is going to do, and they are very expectant that this is part of their routine. Again, this is a very complex topic, and there is so much to be said, more to be said about separation training, let alone separation anxiety or isolation anxiety. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call or shoot me an email. I'm going to do a quick screen share here so you can see the resources. And the resources that I shared earlier in this presentation, Milena DiMartini and her program, I mean, she is the nation's leading expert in separation anxiety and treating it. She's been doing it for over a decade. It's all she does. And she is an amazing resource. So if you think your dog has some really, really challenging and concerning separation issues, please contact her. But every Wednesday, Thursday with us, the Humane Society of Western Montana, 6 o'clock Wednesdays, we have a puppy class. 6 o'clock Thursdays, we have our behavior spotlight where we focus on a variety of topics. Tonight's just happened to be separation anxiety, and we are always happy to help. So feel free to reach out at any time. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening.